Two observability platforms, both running inside thousands of engineering orgs right now. Both promising the same thing, one pane of glass for every metric, every log, every trace. One has spent the last decade building the most polished, most complete, most expensive monitoring product on the market. The other has spent that same decade turning an open source dashboard everyone already loved into a full observability suite you can actually afford to point at all your data. So the question every mid-market platform lead and head of infrastructure is asking in 2026 isn't which one has more features. It's which one survives contact with a real production environment, a real on-call rotation, and a real finance team reading the invoice. Today, we answer that. No vendor sponsorship, no fence sitting. Full stack, full verdict. Here's how this episode is structured. First, the framing. Datadog and Grafana Cloud are both sold as observability platforms, and on a feature checklist, they look almost identical. Both ingest metrics, logs, and traces. Both ship dashboards, alerting, anomaly detection, and an AI layer. Both will happily quote you for a 500 host fleet tomorrow morning. But they come from opposite philosophies, and that origin story still drives every meaningful difference between them in 2026. If you only read the feature matrix, you will pick wrong, because the feature matrix is the one place these two products genuinely look the same. Datadog in 2026 is the fully integrated, fully managed, all-in-one observability SaaS. You install one agent, and from that single foothold, you get infrastructure metrics, log management, application performance monitoring, real user monitoring, synthetic testing, security monitoring, network performance monitoring, and more than 30 other modules, all stitched together inside one product. The pitch is coherence. Every signal correlates with every other signal automatically. The UI is genuinely excellent, and you never assemble or operate any of the underlying machinery yourself. Datadog runs all of it. The history matters here. Datadog began as an infrastructure metrics company, and over a decade it acquired and built outward. Logs, then APM, then real user monitoring, then security, until the product became a single commercial surface covering the entire observability problem. In 2026, that strategy is mature. The modules genuinely feel like one product rather than a bag of acquisitions, and that took years of integration work most vendors never finish. The thing you are buying is not a database. It is an opinionated, finished, end-to-end experience. And you are paying a premium for the fact that someone else already did all the assembly. Grafana Cloud in 2026 looks very different under the hood. It is the managed, hosted version of the open source Grafana observability stack. And that lineage matters enormously. The core is Grafana itself, the dashboarding layer almost every engineer has already used. Underneath it sits a family of purpose-built open source databases, Mimir for metrics, Loki for logs, Tempo for traces, Pyroscope for continuous profiling. Grafana Labs hosts and operates all of that for you in Grafana Cloud. So you get the managed convenience, but the engine is open source, and you could run the exact same stack yourself if you ever wanted to. The history here is the mirror image of Datadog's. Grafana started as the dashboard, the visualization layer that engineers bolted onto Prometheus, onto Graphite, onto whatever they already had. It became ubiquitous precisely because it was open and it sat on top of other people's data. Over the last several years, Grafana Labs built outward and downward, their own metric store, their own log store, their own trace and profiling stores, and then wrapped the whole stack in a managed cloud. So Datadog grew from a database up into a product, while Grafana grew from a dashboard down into a stack. Same destination, opposite direction of travel. And you can feel that difference in every screen of both products. So here's the distinction that drives everything else. Datadog is a destination. You send your data to their platform and you live inside their product. Grafana Cloud is a layer. It is a polished, managed front end and storage tier sitting on top of open standards and open source engines you could, in principle, take with you. One is a beautifully finished house you rent. The other is a beautifully finished house built from parts you are allowed to keep. Keep that frame in your head. Datadog as the rented house, Grafana Cloud as the house you can disassemble and move. Almost every score we hand out today traces back to it. Datadog will tend to win on polish, on completeness, and on the experience of the first hour. Grafana Cloud will tend to win on cost, on portability, and on the experience of the second year. Which of those two timeframes matters more to you is honestly most of the decision, and we will keep coming back to it. Let's talk money. Because observability is the line item that has surprised more mid-market engineering budgets in the last 3 years than any other piece of infrastructure software. And the two platforms get expensive in completely different ways. Datadog's pricing model is modular and meter heavy. Infrastructure monitoring is billed per host per month. Log management is billed on gigabytes ingested and then separately on how many of those logs you choose to index and retain for search. APM is billed per host and on analyzed spans. Real user monitoring, synthetics, security monitoring, profiling, each is its own separately metered module. Every product is reasonably priced on its own. The surprise is what happens when you turn several of them on across a real fleet with real traffic, generating real log volume. Two specifics catch mid-market teams off guard, and they are worth naming precisely. The first is the split between ingesting a log and indexing a log. Datadog meters those separately, which is genuinely flexible. You can ingest cheaply and only index what you search, but it also means a single pricing page line you skimmed over becomes the difference between a sane bill and a frightening one. The second is the per host model itself. In a modern auto-scaling, container-heavy environment, your host count is not a number you set. It is a number your traffic sets for you. A busy week can scale your fleet out, and your infrastructure bill follows it up, and nobody filed a purchase order to make that happen. In our experience modeling actual mid-market deployments, call it 300 to 600 hosts, a couple of busy production services, normal log volume, a multi-module Datadog bill very commonly lands somewhere between $200,000 and $700,000 a year, depending almost entirely on log volume and how many modules are switched on. And the part that genuinely catches teams off guard is that the bill scales with your traffic and your data, not with your headcount. So a great product launch or a noisy new service can move the invoice without anyone making a purchasing decision. Grafana Cloud's pricing structure is fundamentally different. It is built around the volume of telemetry itself, not around a host count and not around a stack of separate modules. You are billed on metric series, on gigabytes of logs and traces and profiles, and on how long you retain them. There is a genuinely usable free tier and a straightforward usage-based paid plan. And crucially, the dashboarding, alerting, and the LGTM engines are not unbundled into separate paid products you bolt on one at a time. There is one number that does most of the work in a Grafana Cloud bill, and you should learn it before you sign anything. Active metric series. A series is a unique combination of a metric name and its labels, and the trap is that every label you add multiplies the count. Add a label for customer ID, or for request path, or for container ID, and a single metric can quietly explode into hundreds of thousands of series. That explosion is called high cardinality, and it is the one thing that genuinely runs a Grafana Cloud meter. The good news is that it is controllable. You decide what labels to attach. The bad news is that it is a real, ongoing engineering discipline, not a checkbox. And we will come back to that when we talk about onboarding. Here's the kicker for mid-market math. Because Grafana Cloud meters the telemetry directly and bundles the tooling, the same observability footprint that produces a multi-$100,000 Datadog bill very often lands Grafana Cloud somewhere in the $60,000 to $250,000 a year range. You still pay for what you send, and a careless metrics cardinality explosion can absolutely run the meter. But the all-in cost for a comparable mid-market deployment typically lands at roughly a third to a half of the Datadog number. In other words, for the same signals, often less than half the invoice. Now, before the comment section fills up, yes, Datadog can be optimized hard, with log filtering, sampling, and disciplined retention tiers, and a well-run Datadog estate is far cheaper than a careless one. And yes, a sloppy Grafana cloud setup with runaway metric cardinality can get expensive too. But across the mid-market estates we have reviewed in the last 12 months, the structural gap is real, and it consistently runs roughly 2 to 1 or wider in Grafana Cloud's favor on annual cost for equivalent coverage. That is meaningful money. And here is the part that does not fit in a spreadsheet cell. When observability gets expensive, teams do the worst possible thing in response. They collect less. They sample traces more aggressively. They drop logs they would have wanted. They stop monitoring the lower priority services. The bill goes down and your visibility goes down with it. And you do not find out which logs you needed until the night you are staring at an incident and they are not there. So the cost difference is not really about money. It is about whether you can afford to instrument everything you should instrument. A cheaper platform is not a luxury. It is what lets you keep the lights on across the whole system instead of just the expensive parts. Cost is one thing. Getting the platform actually live, trusted, and load-bearing for your on-call rotation is another. And in 2026, with engineering teams stretched thin and incident expectations climbing, time to trust is arguably the most important number that never appears on the quote. Datadog's onboarding is famously smooth at the start and deceptively long at the finish. Installing the agent and getting infrastructure metrics flowing is genuinely fast, often the same day. But reaching what a team would call full operational trust, logs structured and parsed, APM instrumented across the important services, dashboards that the on-call engineer actually believes at 3 in the morning, alerting tuned so it is neither noisy nor silent, and the bill brought under deliberate control, that full state across the cases we reviewed typically took 2 to 4 months. Grafana Cloud splits its onboarding into a fast half and a slower half. The fast half is the dashboards. Any engineer who has touched Grafana before is productive almost immediately, and that is a real head start. The slower half is the pipeline underneath, deciding what to ship into Mimir, Loki, and Tempo, wiring up collectors, and the part teams consistently underestimate, actively managing metrics cardinality so the volume stays sane. Across the cases we reviewed, full operational trust landed in roughly 2 to 4 months as well. Similar elapsed time to Datadog, but the effort sits in different places. So why does the effort land in different places? 3 reasons. 1, the agent. Datadog's single agent makes the first day easy, but that same convenience hides how much logs, APM, and security still need real per-service configuration before they are trustworthy. 2, the pipeline. Grafana Cloud asks you to think about your telemetry pipeline deliberately and early, which is more upfront work, but it means you understand exactly what you are sending and paying for. 3, the cost control loop. With Datadog, keeping the bill sane becomes a permanent operational task. With Grafana Cloud, the equivalent task is cardinality discipline, also permanent but generally more contained. There is one more onboarding factor that almost never makes the evaluation, and it should. Who already knows the tool? Grafana is one of the most widely deployed pieces of software in all of infrastructure. The odds that several engineers on your team have already built Grafana dashboards at a previous job are genuinely high. Datadog's interface is excellent, but it is specific to Datadog. It is a skill people learn at your company and largely leave behind when they go. That difference compounds. With Grafana Cloud, a chunk of your onboarding was effectively done years ago by other employers for free. With Datadog, every new hire starts that part of the clock again. Now, and this matters, the smoother first day is a genuine asset, not a trick. If your team is small, has no observability specialist, and needs visibility this week, Datadog's Fast Start has real value. But if you have even one engineer who enjoys owning the telemetry pipeline, Grafana Cloud's more explicit model pays you back, because you end up understanding and controlling exactly what you collect and what it costs. This is the heart of the comparison. What can each platform actually see, and how good is it at telling you what just broke? Let's break it into 4 dimensions. Metrics and dashboards, logs, distributed tracing and profiling, and AI-assisted investigation. I'll score each one head to head. Dimension 1, metrics and dashboards. This is close, and it splits. Datadog's out-of-the-box experience is superb. Hundreds of curated integrations, default dashboards that are genuinely good the moment you connect to technology, and effortless correlation across signals. Grafana, though, is the tool engineers reach for when they want to build exactly the dashboard in their head. The query and visualization flexibility is best in class, and a query's data source is well beyond its own storage. Call it even. Datadog wins the first hour, Grafana wins the 100th dashboard. Dimension 2, log management. Datadog wins on the experience, and it is a real lead. The Log Explorer is fast and intuitive, parsing and enrichment pipelines are powerful, and logs correlate beautifully with traces and metrics in a single click. But that experience is exactly where the bill concentrates. Logs are the line item that most often runs the Datadog invoice. Grafana's Loki takes a deliberately cheaper architectural path. It indexes only labels, not full log content, which makes storage dramatically less expensive. The trade is that arbitrary full-text search over huge volumes is less instant and rewards more deliberate querying. Dimension 3, tracing and profiling. Both platforms are strong and both lean on OpenTelemetry as the collection standard. Datadog's APM is more turnkey. The instrumentation libraries are mature, the service map is excellent, and the correlation between a trace and its logs and metrics is seamless. Grafana's Tempo handles traces at very low storage cost. Pyroscope brings genuinely good continuous profiling into the same pane, and the whole thing is built tightly around open standards. Datadog wins on polish and turnkey correlation. Grafana wins on cost and on standards-first openness. Dimension 4, AI-assisted investigation. This is where 2026 actually differs from 2023. Datadog's bet here is the more ambitious one, an AI investigation layer that watches across every module, proposes root causes, summarizes incidents in plain language, and surfaces correlated anomalies you did not think to ask about. Because Datadog already holds all of your signals in one place, that AI has an unusually complete picture to reason over. Grafana Cloud's AI assistance is more focused, strong at helping you write queries, build and explain dashboards, and accelerate an investigation you are already driving. It is genuinely useful, but it is more of an expert co-pilot than an autonomous first responder. One honest caveat on the AI, because the demos are seductive. An autonomous investigation layer is only as good as the data it reasons over and the trust your engineers place in it. If Datadog's AI proposes a root cause and it is wrong even one time in 5, your on-call engineers will quietly stop believing it. And a root cause suggestion nobody trusts is just noise with extra confidence. The broad cross-signal AI is a genuine advantage when your data is clean and your team has learned where it is reliable. It is not a substitute for engineers who understand their own system on either platform, and you should price it as an accelerant, not as a hire. Net of all 4 dimensions, Datadog has the more complete, more polished, more autonomous platform. It sees more, and increasingly, it explains more on its own. Grafana Cloud covers every signal that genuinely matters at a fraction of the cost with elite dashboarding and a standards-first foundation. And its AI is a sharp co-pilot rather than an autonomous investigator. You are not choosing between good and bad. You are choosing between more polished and pricey and enough, open, and affordable. And for most mid-market teams, Enough turns out to be a remarkably honest description of what they actually use day to day. No observability platform lives alone, and none lives forever. So before you sign, you have to ask the question the sales deck will not raise for you. How hard is it to leave? And how well does this thing fit the rest of your stack? Datadog's lock-in is real, and it is worth naming honestly. You instrument with Datadog's agent, you write dashboards and monitors in Datadog's query language, and your historical telemetry lives in Datadog storage in Datadog's format. None of that is a trap exactly. Datadog increasingly supports open telemetry ingestion, which softens the edges. But the practical reality is that a mature Datadog estate with hundreds of dashboards and finely tuned monitors represents a serious migration project to unwind. The switching cost is a genuine strategic factor. Grafana Cloud's portability story is its single strongest argument. You collect telemetry with OpenTelemetry and Prometheus, open standards, not a proprietary agent. The storage engines under the hood, Mimir and Loki and Tempo, are open source. And here is the move that genuinely changes the negotiation. If Grafana Cloud's pricing ever stops working for you, you can take the same open source stack and run it yourself, or move it to another host. You are not handing your observability future to a single vendor's roadmap and a single vendor's price list. Two more ecosystem dimensions matter: breadth of integrations and the community around each tool. Integrations. Datadog has the deeper turnkey catalog by a clear margin. Hundreds of polished vendor-maintained integrations that light up the moment you connect them, including a strong set of network and cloud infrastructure monitors. Grafana's integration story is more of a hybrid, a large library of pre-built dashboards plus the open Prometheus and OpenTelemetry exporter ecosystem, which together cover almost everything, though some assembly is more often required than with Datadog's one-click experience. Community. This is where Grafana's open source lineage pays a dividend that does not show up on any quote. Grafana is one of the most widely used tools in all of infrastructure software. The documentation and public dashboard library are enormous, and a huge share of working engineers already know it. Datadog's community is large and active too, but it is a customer community around a commercial product, whereas Grafana's is a genuine open source community, which means more public knowledge, more portable skills, and a hiring pool that already knows your tool. So, the verdict. For the median mid-market engineering organization, call it 50 to 400 engineers, a cloud-native or hybrid stack, a real on-call rotation, and a finance team that reads the infrastructure bill, Grafana Cloud wins in 2026. It wins decisively on cost. It wins on portability and freedom from lock-in. It wins on dashboarding flexibility and on the breadth of skills already in the hiring market. It loses on out-of-the-box polish, on the depth of the turnkey integration catalog, and on the ambition of its autonomous AI. But for the median mid-market team, those losses do not change the buying decision. Datadog wins for a specific subset of mid-market. Teams with little or no observability expertise who need maximum coverage with minimum operational effort. Teams that genuinely value a single autonomous AI investigation layer reasoning across every signal. Teams running an unusually sprawling estate where the depth of Datadog's turnkey integration catalog removes real work. And teams for whom engineering time is so scarce and so expensive that paying a premium to operate nothing themselves is simply the correct trade. If that is you, Datadog's polish and completeness genuinely pay off. But you have to accept the bill and the lock-in with your eyes open. If you are in the gray zone, somewhere between those two profiles, here is the decision framework I would actually use. Question 1. Do you have or will you hire at least one engineer who is comfortable owning a telemetry pipeline? If yes, lean Grafana Cloud. If no, lean Datadog. This is the single most predictive question on the list. The entire cost advantage of Grafana Cloud is unlocked by, and only by, someone who will own the pipeline. Without that person, you are buying a stack you cannot fully drive. Question 2. Is freedom from vendor lock-in and the ability to self-host later a real strategic priority for your organization? If yes, Grafana Cloud. If it genuinely is not, Datadog is on the table. Be honest here. Do not claim portability matters if no one will ever act on it. But if your leadership has ever been burned by a vendor's renewal pricing, this question answers itself. Question 3. Is your near-term observability ambition cover everything with the least possible effort, or control exactly what we collect and what it costs? If least effort coverage, Datadog. If deliberate control, Grafana Cloud. There is no wrong answer. It is a values question, not a quality question. It just has to be an honest one. Question 4. How much pressure is your infrastructure budget actually under over the next 12 to 24 months? Heavy pressure? Lean, Grafana Cloud. Comfortable budget with scarce engineering time? Datadog is defensible. And remember the trap from earlier. If the budget tightens after you have committed to the pricier platform, the way you will be forced to save money is by collecting less, which is the one outcome observability exists to prevent. If your answers split evenly, default to the lower cost, more portable, more reversible option, which in 2026 is Grafana Cloud. You can always layer a premium platform on later or move up to one. What you cannot easily do is claw back 2 years of observability overspend or quickly unwind a deep proprietary estate once it has set. One last point before we close. The honest truth is that observability is one of the most quietly expensive, most operationally load-bearing, and most slowly reversible infrastructure decisions a mid-market engineering org will make. Both Datadog and Grafana Cloud are genuinely excellent platforms built by serious teams. The wrong choice does not take you down. The wrong choice taxes your budget or your freedom quietly for years. Our verdict for 2026 mid-market. Grafana Cloud is the default. Datadog is the deliberate upgrade, chosen on purpose because you genuinely value zero operations coverage and an autonomous AI more than you value the money and the portability. Not chosen by inertia, and not because someone benchmarked it once in 2021. We'll do deep dive episodes on each: a Datadog cost control playbook, a Grafana Cloud telemetry pipeline build, real incident response walkthroughs on both. If you want those, subscribe, and the work keeps coming. Full stack, full verdict. No sponsorship from either vendor. If that's the kind of review you want more of, hit subscribe.